Just a tragic story. Let's return, though, to some of the big political issues of the day and our panel, both of them here in Canberra. Grahame Morris, Bruce Hawker. We haven't seen you in the capital for a while, Bruce, but lovely to have you back.
I thought it was safe to return.
Safe to return. I won't ask when the last time you were here. Now, let's start with your thoughts on WA, because next time we speak on Monday, we'll have the results in. What are you expecting, Grahame, in Saturday's election?
Look, everyone's hoping for a minor miracle in the final week, like Premier Barnett sort of walks across the Swan River and turns iron ore into fishes and loaves. It needs a little miracle. Is
that bad?
The parliamentarians have given the Labor Party too much start before they went into the election. And look, you know, 9 or 10% swing in the old days, you'd laugh and say impossible. Nowadays, it's the norm. And look, all the judges over there say they're not angry, they're not grumpy. It's just this sort of it's time factor that the government is having real difficulty getting over the top of. And you know, if you were a betting man, if I was betting with your money, you'd say sort of Labor by 3 or 4 seats.
All right. Would you agree with that, Bruce? What's your expectation?
Well, the bookies have got Labor at $1.30, so that's often a good indication of where the smart money is. I think Labor will win the election, but you know, they've still got to pick up 10 or 9 seats with the 10% swing. And Graham's right, you know, 10% swings used to be absolutely exceptional, and now they seem to be almost run of the mill. So we can't just assume that it's going to, you know, be difficult for them to get to that 10%. It's a state that's been in recession effectively for quite a while because of the downturn in the mining industry. There's a lot of unhappy people there. It's a government that's been in for 2 terms.
House price go down.
Yeah.
What will be interesting, David, is to have a look at can Senator Hanson's people, can One Nation hold their preferences in a lot of these key seats? In other words, can they get people on the ground, hand out vote cards, and people say, oh yeah, you know, 1 for you and 2 for the Liberals in some of these seats? That could make a difference.
Because the view is that One Nation voters don't follow the ticket as much as some other voters.
That's right. If they just split 50-50, that's no good to the Libs at all.
It needs to be, what, 70-30?
It needs to be up around 78.
And they've burnt their relationship with the Nats too by doing this deal with One Nation. So it doesn't augur well for them. And you know, Mark McGowan, I think he's a pretty solid operator.
Well, he's played a pretty safe campaign. How much is I mean, you mentioned the it's time factor with Colin Barnett, which is a good point, because it's not just the time that he's been there as Premier, but as a leader or a deputy leader.
9 years. 9 years as the boss. You know, nowadays that's a lot.
In opposition
and longer in opposition.
Well, what about the power privatisation? Is that a big issue?
Look, you know, on the eastern seaboard, it doesn't matter one jot. Over there, the privatisation thing is a real polariser. But without that, you know, the Libs would have been struggling to have any money to sell because, you know, you've gone from this wonderful economy based on resources down to a really struggling economy.
Mike Baird did it in New South Wales and got it through and managed to free up that money for all sorts of infrastructure.
Indeed.
He was very, very popular.
And it's all about the timing of the decision, isn't it? I mean, Grahame once made the point that, you know, goodwill is like a glass of water. You can drink some, you have to refill it. They did that sale when goodwill towards the government was at a pretty high point. Yeah. And so they're able to lose some of that, you know, that public support in order to do the privatisation. Privatisations are always unpopular. It's just a question of where in the cycle you do it. I think they've done this at the wrong point in the electoral cycle. So
Pauline Hanson lobs into town late last night. She'll be there for most of this week. And you can see the media pack have just gone, boom, straight onto her. Is this worrying news, do you think, for Colin Barnett? Is he going to struggle to get oxygen while Pauline Hanson's in town?
Yes, yeah. You know, she did an interview yesterday, and you know, 90% of it she probably got roughly right. 10% of it was idiotic.
The vaccination stuff.
The vaccination stuff was just terrible. And look, it doesn't matter to her one jot, because all of her supporters say, hey, if I were on the Insiders program on the ABC being interviewed, I'd make a lot of mistakes.
Sure.
And she only made 1 or 2, and they sort of forgive her for that.
They also probably agree with what she's saying.
But the vaccination thing is really, really dangerous. And yeah, the journos will chase her, so in the final week of the campaign, it'll be very difficult for any of the major parties to get a decent run, except for their wrap-up.
Let me ask you, what should she do in this situation? I mean, clearly they know they've stuffed up because, you know, we see her twice today running away from the question and they don't want to talk about it. But how do you handle that? I mean, you guys have all been in this situation, right?
For someone like her, who appeals to, you know, frankly, people aren't always going to take the most rational view of politics. I think she can't run away from it. She can't disavow it even. You know, she's just got to live with it. This is what
I said.
And this is what I believe in, you know, because that's what they look for in people like Pauline Hanson, Donald Trump. You know, they may be talking a fair bit of rubbish, but they think they've got the courage of their convictions. So as soon as they start backing away from the things that they've been pronouncing so fervently, they start losing that base that really guarantees them, you know, a level of support. Doesn't apply to the mainstream political parties and leaders, but to these populist type leaders, I don't think that they can ever say I got it wrong, because then they're mere humans. They're like the Wizard of Oz. They pull away the curtain. Oh, there's Pauline. She's just another politician.
Do you agree?
I think
you can't
that's
admit
right.
You got it wrong, or does this keep following you?
But you cannot have everybody laughing at her. And she will know this better than most. There'll be in the next 48 hours, there'll be a period there whether it's like everyone moves on or they don't. And that's the stage where she probably should say, look, to all of you parents out there, I'm not a doctor, but I've read all this stuff and there are some concerns. You go and have a talk to your own doctor and your own pharmacist and work it out. Now, that gets her around it.
Yep.
She hasn't backed off. She said, go there. And
get that test done.
all the medicos I've ever spoken to say everything we do for our kids, every immunisation, there are no serious side effects. At worst, you get a bit of a fever and you get a bit of a bee sting here. Yep. Everything else is okay.
But you know, this is, I think, where the mainstream.
But there are some couple of idiots on websites who are sort of doctors of bovine dung.
They think it's
and everyone says, oh, it must be true.
A government conspiracy to anyway.
But I think this is where the major political parties have got to take their argument with parties like One Nation. You know, it does tend to have people in its ranks who are going to go out there and say silly things about vaccinations or fluoridation or UFOs or whatever. You know, they are going to always attract some pretty odd candidates, and for those people who are in the mainstream of Australian public who are sort of tempted to support them because they're the outsiders and they're going to shake it up, they need to look at some of the things that they're out there talking about, because you know, they are frankly silly and sometimes quite dangerous.
Talking about saying something or tweeting something and then not having the evidence to back it up. Donald Trump. Now, the tweet about Obama wiretapping the phones at Trump Tower, we've seen his staff in an almighty tangle over the last 24 hours trying to defend the comments. What's going on there, Grahame?
Look, I've met presidents and chiefs of staff to presidents of the United States, and they have something about them. There's this aura of stability and power and authority and a little bit of common sense, but not a lot. There's none of that stability with him, and I would dread being his chief of staff or his press secretary. Just dread it. And just imagine, you know, if John Howard had said in this country, oh, Bob Hawke bugged me, or Paul Keating bugged me, or Tony Abbott said, oh, Julia Gillard bugged me, everyone would be there demanding the proof.
And then imagine if the head of ASIO came out and said, no, we didn't.
You'd be destroyed. Absolutely destroyed. He's still standing.
But this is the thing, Bruce. This is the thing. I mean, I don't think this will rattle his...
No, not his base.
If he tweets his stuff, and does it sink in with some people? Yeah, maybe Obama did that.
I think, well, some people will just accept it. And, like, he has got this base that believes in him, and you know, they may not even worry too much if they think that he's not particularly truthful at this moment, because the good things about Donald Trump are going to outweigh the bad things, and we're going to cut him some slack. You know, he made that famous comment or infamous comment before the election that he could walk down Fifth Avenue and shoot someone and his supporters would still support him. And you know, that's...
And you reckon that's right?
Well, I think that's a bit extreme, but essentially he has
rusted on followers.
Yeah, and there are people out there who will believe anything that's told them by people who they want to believe.
Yeah, well, I mean, what do his opponents do with this sort of thing because
they keep at him. They don't let up. And over time, that will, I think, win the day. Otherwise, democracy's in a hell of a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and meanwhile, Jeff Sessions, his Attorney General, is in a fair bit of heat, under a fair bit of pressure as well, over denying during his confirmation hearing that he had any contact with Russians. Turns out he did meet with the Russian ambassador. He's recused himself from any the inquiry into connections between the Trump campaign and the Russians, but.
The half-truths and the mistruths and the look over there truths with the Russians are looking very, very untidy for the Trump camp, and it's getting closer and closer and closer to the boss.
See, this is and this is the problem. I mean, this is your sort of your Watergate style problem. I mean, I think it's too early to be making those comparisons. But if he has willfully misled the public or he's engaged in lies, then he's got a real problem with his Congress, and it's at that point where those impeachment rules start coming into play. Now, I think it's too early to be talking about that, but you upset the security establishment in Washington at your own great peril.
It could have been a breath of fresh air, but the air is starting to smell a bit, I think.
All right, Grahame, Bruce, good to talk to both of you. Good to see you both in person. We'll catch up next week. I'm keen to get your thoughts as we pick over the entrails of the WA election result as well. All right, we'll take a quick break right now. Back with the last word.